Hey folks, Brendan from Blue Light here, and for those of you who haven't seen any of my videos before, over the past 7 or so years I've been coaching and supporting people to succeed in the police recruitment process. A good 3,500 people have now been successful as a result of my support. So if you're watching this on YouTube and if you like it, please do subscribe, and by the magic of YouTube you will receive notification every time I publish another video. And if you're watching this on Facebook, please do click on the like button. I'll then be able to send you an invite to my secret Facebook group. That's what Facebook call it. They call it secret. It's not a very special branch or anything like that. It just means that you can't find that group, can't see its members, and you can't see its posts unless you've had an invite to join it. Over 4,500 people now. They're supporting each other through the police recruitment process, and lots of top tips and bits of guidance from me as to how to succeed. So this video today is a little bit of bad news for you folks because the Treasury Department, bearing in mind it's October 18, please do bear in mind the date because if you're watching this in 2019, all of this might have been resolved. Anyway, it's October 2018 at this moment in time. Treasury Department has announced that the police are now expected to fund more of their retired police officers' pensions and retired police staff pensions. What this means is that it's a huge shortfall in funding. So forget the end of austerity. This is like austerity on acid. The National Police Chiefs Council suggests that up to 10,000 officers will have to be lost as a result of these changes over the next 2 years. And you've got police officers like the Chief Constable of West Midlands Police. There's an article from the news from Dave Thompson. Dave Thompson is not prone to sensationalism. I worked with him as a sergeant years ago. He's talking about it being utterly extraordinary, these pension changes. And here's Jeanette McCormick, Chief Constable of Cheshire, another officer I've worked with. She was my Chief Superintendent years ago. She's asking a question on Twitter: when should I be focused on tackling knife crime, exploiting the vulnerable, child exploitation and domestic abuse? And that's in response to Philip Hammond's suggestion that the police should be focusing more on burglary. Don't know where he gets that from. And where am I going to find up to 250 officers to balance the books? Now, they're not the only chief constables. Chief constables and police and crime commissioners right across the country are talking about this being catastrophic, devastating, a disaster. So what does it mean to you then? You might be looking at it thinking, well, just sort out the books, chief officers. It's not as easy as that though, because the only way to sort out the books, if you're going to have to lose the equivalent of 500 officers in terms of funding, and bearing in mind that police pay accounts for over 90% of all the money that the police have to spend on policing. So they can't really raise the precepts much further because they've already done that. There's nowhere else for them to get the money. A lot of them have already used their reserves, or a significant proportion of the reserves. And by the way, reserves are there for a rainy day in case there's a massive disaster that they need to dip into. They can't dip into it just to fund further police officers because of a pension shortfall. The only thing they can do is to stop recruiting, because they can't make police officers redundant. Police officers are crown servants, they're not employed, which means employment law doesn't apply to them. You cannot make a police officer redundant. So the only way to lose officers is to wait for them to retire and not replace them. Now, this is going to have a massive impact on you if you are hoping to join the police, because what that means is that they'll probably still recruit, but just nothing like the same sort of numbers that they're recruiting at this moment in time. So Greater Manchester Police, for example, wanted to recruit well over 500 officers over an 18-month period. They may reduce that to about 40, which is what they were doing in the early years of austerity. As a lot of forces just stopped recruiting altogether. So if you're hoping to join the police, you may still be able to, but you're going to have to completely ace every stage. So like Durham Constabulary, who have always been very choosy, will only take you forwards to assessment centre if you score all A's on your application form. And then they start interviewing the successful candidates at the assessment centre, from the top scorers down to the lower scorers. And once they get the number of officers they need, they'll just write to everyone else and say, thanks very much, you've been successful at the assessment centre, but there's no further places available. Other forces like Surrey will just put you in a holding bay and send you a nice email every now and then saying, I'm sorry, but we've not got an intake for you, but you have been successful, please do be patient. Other forces like Humberside have told some of my clients that they've been successful, but there's no place for them until August onwards next year, August 19 onwards. Now, just because I've sent you an email to say that you've been successful and there'll be a planned intake in the summer of 2019, please bear in mind that that's all it is. A lot of forces like Sussex and Cheshire and other forces across the country, West Mercia have done this, West Midlands Police have done this over the years, a number of forces have done this. They've kept people in that holding bay and then just written to them, sometimes just a matter of weeks before they'd planned to join, to say that I'm sorry about this, but the intake has now been cancelled. So expect that to happen, folks. Expect this to happen, because if they've not got the money for these intakes that they've planned for next year, they've just not got the money. And the only thing they're going to be able to do is to cancel those intakes. They're not going to do it though until they've got a final, no, this is the way it is from the Treasury Department. Treasury Department, I'm quite sure they're going to go and try and negotiate with them. But they're not negotiating with their normal partners in crime here, the Home Office. This is a completely different department. And Philip Hammond has got to ensure that the books are squared off, especially with Brexit coming. So my guess is this is all part of ensuring that they've got the sufficient funds for the United Kingdom to be resilient when it leaves the European Union in March 19. So there's a lot at play here, and the 50-something, getting on for 50-something chief constables are not going to have that much of an impact on the Treasury Department, I don't think, in terms of, no, this is unfair. So forget the end of austerity, Theresa May. This is like austerity on acid for the police, and I'm not quite sure what the solution is. But anyway, what I can say is that if you are hoping to join the police, you're going to have to ensure that your scores are absolutely the highest at every stage of the process to ensure that you are successful. And this is going to have a huge impact as well on the universities that are hoping to provide the Police Constable Degree Apprenticeship. So if you're a university and you're gearing up for, let's say, 100 or 150 students every year that are going to come through the forces surrounding you, and all of a sudden those forces stop recruiting, that means that you may only have to run the Police Constable Degree Apprenticeship for 30, 20 officers over a 2-year period. Universities just aren't going to do that because they've got to employ the lecturers, the assessors, the moderators, the exam markers. There's a huge amount of resources goes into running a degree, and it's just not viable to do it for small numbers. So my guess is a lot of universities will put the PCDA on hold as well. So that's going to have a big impact. I'm not quite sure. I've not seen any chief constables talking about that yet, but certainly in my experience of delivering the certificate of knowledge in policing, Blue Light was the biggest provider of that qualification for the whole of the country. We had 26% of the market share, put about 1,600 students through it. But you can only run that programme if you've got viable numbers. If you've not got viable numbers, you might as well go out on the streets and burn £50 notes. So university is no different to any other business. You cannot run it at a loss. So universities won't be able to run the PCDA at a loss. So there's a lot of play here, folks. I'm not quite sure how it's going to work out. I shall certainly update you on YouTube and Facebook whenever I do find out. So I'll keep my ears peeled. I'm off to a Police Foundation conference tomorrow in London. So I'll be bumping into 1 or 2 people from academia and also practitioners from the police sector. And I'll be asking them some questions about how they see this is going to play out. And I'll further update you on whatever I discover. So I hope you found this useful. I'm sorry it's not good news if you're hoping to join the police and you've not secured a guaranteed place, which means pretty much that you're starting tomorrow. It's a bit like buying a house. Nothing's guaranteed until you've got the warrant card and you're walking through the door. So if you have any other suggestions about other videos I can post, please do let me know. Until next time, I shall speak to you very soon. Bye-bye now.